What's up, everybody? It's Nanocast, podcast all about the cryptocurrency Nano. Nano's fast, feeless, scalable, and led by a driven team. It's inspired thousands of people to participate in its apps and development. And on this podcast, you'll get to meet some of those people and learn what they're up to. I'm Sean, your host, and today we've got Andrew Steele, also known as Chrono in Discord and Reddit, to talk about Nano Vault. Thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for the invite. I've watched a few episodes. I think it's super good thing to be doing for the Nano community. So
awesome. Thanks. I appreciate that. It's a lot of fun to do. Hopefully people don't get tired of hearing my voice. Before we get into questions, just want to mention our sponsor, BrainBlocks. BrainBlocks does a lot of things, makes Nano work in the real world. They also released something called a pod. A pod is a way for you to, it's a physical device that allows you to host a representative at home just by plugging it right into your router. I've had one for over a week now, and it works flawlessly. In the beginning, there were a few glitches to work out, but now it's been awesome. It doesn't consume a lot of power. It doesn't take up a lot of bandwidth, and my node has been up, 100% of the time. So I would definitely recommend it. You can check that out at nanocast.co/pod. I don't believe at this point it's out for everyone to buy quite yet, but it'll be coming soon. So back to Andrew. Andrew, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you got into Nano, and what you're most excited about when it comes to Nano right now.
Yeah. We'll have to bring up the pod a little bit later because, we had not involvement in making it, but hopefully we're trying to get Nano Vault on the pod so that everyone who's using the BrainBlocks pod, I think it comes with a wallet or two, and we're trying to make Nano Vault one of those options. But so my name's Andrew, of course. I'm 29. I'm living in California right now. I've been into computers and stuff kind of my whole life. As a kid, I started gaming and stuff at 10 and 12. And by the time I was leaving high school, I started to get into coding and things like that. So I just got a job when I was younger coding and started from the bottom, and I've just been kind of writing code now for about 10 years. And just, I grew up in Arizona, in Phoenix, and learned life there, if you will, and then just moved here to California about two years ago. So
sweet.
It's kind of been the journey so far.
Yeah. And how did you make your way to Nano?
I'm trying to remember how. I think I originally heard of Nano on Reddit, looking through just the cryptocurrency forums. I've been hearing about it here and there. I got into, I've been following Bitcoin for maybe a few years. I messed with it when it was really early, but I, didn't really get hooked at all. And then it started to blow up. Ether got really big, and I started to put a little money in. I'm kind of a conservative investor, so I wasn't really jumping at the bit to go put a bunch of money into this new cryptocurrency thing.
Right.
But so all of last year I was kind of getting into it. Coworkers were into it, and that kind of, so end of last year, I really started to get into cryptos. Things were blowing up, and I was like, holy crap, what is this really, this next big thing, all of that stuff. So eventually found Nano and did a real deep dive on the code. I went through, read the whole white paper, tried to really think about if this is a really good idea. And then I just really got hooked really quickly on Nano. I thought that solved the problems that it was looking to solve. It did really well. And I really thought that, to me, Nano solved the really unique problem. Everyone is trying to make companies in the cryptos, we're going to replace contracts and, just different parts of the business cycle. Whereas to me, the only thing that was really a proven cryptocurrency was Bitcoin. And was the purpose of Bitcoin was just sending money between two parties. So that's why I thought, okay, Nano, they're solving that problem. They're solving the problem really well. And to me, it's the only really proven usage of cryptocurrencies. So that's why I really, got on board and thought it was really cool. I've been kind of hooked on it ever since, and I haven't really spent as much time in any other crypto as I have in Nano. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at it. I really like that. This kind of proof of concept idea, thinking about that in terms of cryptocurrency, uh, using it for transfer of value is really the only way that it's been proved to work well.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you invest in a currency coin?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I'm pretty skeptical. I mean, moving to California, I got into all of the startup stuff and really, got really interested in business and how business works and why, people pay for things and things like that. And through that, that's kind of the supporting reasons or, background for why I think some of the ways I do. And like that, a lot of these cryptos really feel unproven to me. Um, no one's really proven that you can make a real business out
Hmm.
of a cryptocurrency so far, I would say.
Right.
So
Um,
yeah, I look at it that way.
Coming from a coder's perspective, you said you took a deep dive into the code, and you've got some experience. Did you walk away satisfied with what you saw?
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and say that I'm not a lower level programmer, so I didn't necessarily go through all of the code that's written in the Node software, as much as the theory of how it all works, and then kind of using it myself at a higher level. So I haven't done much with working inside of the Node. All my programming experience, or the most of my programming experience, is web related.
Hmm.
So I tend to stick to what I'm good at.
Right.
Um, Now testing the actual software, I mean, it all worked really well, but I mean that's eventually what kind of led into me wanting to make Nano Vault at all. Was going through and really testing the software and seeing that wow, at a core level, like the protocol here, like it works.
Hmm.
They're solving all the problems and it works. But then you go to use the software, use the wallet to interact, and it's like it doesn't sell you nearly as hard. You need to be a technical person like
Right.
myself or whoever else to really have that boom moment in your mind where you're like, wow, like this is
Right.
this is big.
Yeah. One of the things you said is that Nano solves the problems it sets out to fix or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I thought to myself is that it solves that problem great, but it hasn't yet solved the problem that all the cryptocurrencies are struggling with, which is more of a social problem, which is how to you know how to make adoption happen.
Yeah,
And I don't know, it's a big one.
that's yeah. I don't know if there'll be any real crypto that has a solution for that problem. As much as we will just together come to that is the solution. Cryptos
Right.
for a given one. But I agree with you. That's obviously the hardest part that the whole market is dealing with right now.
Hmm.
It is, here's some cool new technology. How do we prove that it's better than everything else? And everyone really seems to believe that this is a better way to do money transfer and things like that. And it's better in a lot of ways. But if it is so self-evidently true, it should be really easy to convince people. I'm finding that it isn't super easy. And so, yeah, I think that's something that all cryptos are trying to figure out right now is how do we get people to believe what we believe? How do
Right.
we get them to test this out and see if it is actually better?
All right. So now to what's going on in your world. What's the exciting thing you see in Nano or that you're getting to participate in Nano?
Um, let's see. I mean, I guess that's tough. I don't have a great answer. Maybe I would just say I'm really just excited for the future of Nano.
Mm.
Solving that main problem, like you said, because to me it is true already that it's like a better way to send money because I know about it. But really, it's about convincing other people. It's kind of a useless medium if you don't have anyone to send it to.
Mm.
So I think that's probably going to be the most exciting thing for sure is just seeing adoption pick up with Nano.
Mm.
Hopefully.
So when you
Um,
look to the future of Nano, what do you see that gets you fired up?
um, that's tough. Like I would like to list like a feature that they're going to do, something in the roadmap, something like that. But to me, I don't see anything there that is that much of a game changer because a lot of the core work really seems like So, okay, there's probably a few things. I think that once we finally get into ledger pruning, I think that's going to be a really, really big
Hmm.
technical win for Nano, for the long term of Nano. You know, if we're looking like 5 years into the future of Nano, if we haven't solved that problem, there's no way it's going to work.
Hmm.
So getting the ledger pruning, I feel like is a really important feature, and um, maybe there's some other ones that are just as big, but to me, that one really feels like one of the last steps that's really missing from the core protocol for this thing to just live on its own for years and years and years. I'm excited for that. Otherwise, in general, I'm just excited for adoption. I think I'm excited for the day when I go to pay for something and Nano is available without me being any part of that.
Yeah. A website that I use a lot is, or that I've used it a few times in my adult life, is overstock.com. And they have a bunch of cryptos on there. And it's the only place, that's not true either. It's one of the only places that like I've actually used crypto to buy things.
Nice.
And yeah, I think it's great. I wish that more places had crypto offerings. Of course, they do all of their, just so everybody knows, they choose their currencies based on what is accepted by Shapeshift. So Nano's got to be working with Shapeshift before you'll see it on websites, a lot of websites, overstock.com being one of them.
Yeah, Shapeshift is interesting because we didn't mention that. I think it won't be like a huge day for Nano, but it'll be really important because a lot of the things that people think Nano is going to be really good at is sending the money, obviously, and sending money really quickly for no fee. Obviously, that's another huge thing, for no fee. So people have really touted, because this argument makes sense to me, is that Nano would be really, really good for moving money across exchanges and things like that. But you need like that shapeshift. Like if you could use Monero with Nano flawlessly together, all of a sudden, like I think whole new worlds open up for Nano. So yeah, I think that'll be interesting once we get like some actual mixers that work with Nano, for sure. And Overstock, I mean, are they still accepting cryptos? Because I thought I heard at one point that they stopped accepting cryptos because we saw the big rise and fall of Bitcoin, and a lot of retailers that had started accepting cryptos were getting nervous, rightfully so.
I am actually not sure. I haven't looked recently. I thought they were, but I could be wrong.
They definitely, as far as I'm aware, they were like the online retailer that was accepting cryptos that everyone's aware of. So I would assume they still do, but it isn't straightforward to me that businesses should just accept cryptos because of how volatile the price is. And it's not great maybe to hear someone like me say this, but I feel like that's just empirically true.
Right. Yeah. There definitely needs to be, in order for businesses to start accepting crypto, there definitely needs to be like a way for them to accept the crypto, immediately change it into cash without taking a loss.
Yes.
And I have a feeling that Brain Blocks might be working on that, but we'll find out. I don't know anything. I just feel like that's something they'd be working on. Okay, so we've been talking for a few minutes already, but we haven't really touched on what you did, which is Nano Vault. So you were just fired up about the coin, so you decided to make a wallet, or what happened there?
Yeah, essentially, I got into Nano like I was mentioning earlier, and I downloaded the Node software, and finally got like a node running, and rather, I guess it was actually a little. It was easier than that. I finally got my node synced. Is actually what happened, and so I was able to send stuff. And I don't know. Everything worked really well, but I just felt, and this was the other important thing, is that they had already put in a lot of work to make a node API available, which was a needed basis for me to go and make a web application that runs on top of the node. So originally, I just decided to make a wallet that runs locally on your computer. So you would need to download the desktop wallet and run it, and then you would go and run Nano Vault, and it would talk to your node on your computer. That was like the initial step, and that's when I built that, and it worked. A few people used it, but then I started to realize, like, this is way too hard to use, and a lot of people actually are going to have trouble just syncing a node in general, right? We started to see kind of early on that there was a pretty big network hit for trying to keep a node synced. I remember early on, I would run the node when I was developing, and like my network would just get destroyed. Like I couldn't watch YouTube on running the node and stuff like that. So that was kind of scary to see at first. Luckily, we've come a long way since then.
Yeah.
Node's much more stable, and they're working on the bandwidth constantly. But originally it was that. Then I decided, I'm going to make an online wallet. I looked at nanowallet.io. I thought it was really useful for the community, but I didn't like the aspect of the server storage. That was like a big hit in my mind. I didn't like that anything that I was putting on the site was being stored. I'd used my Ether wallet many times before that to send Ether, and that seemed like the better approach. And I've used many different web wallets, and in general, there's give and takes for why you would want to do it, each way. But I thought that Nano needed something that would be just super simple to use. You just type it in and use it. There's no logging in. There's nothing saved about you. Just like bare bones. So that was kind of the idea that I started off with, and I started working on Nano Vault, and that was right around the new year of this year. And I think by the end of January is probably when I had moved on to the web wallet version.
I just want to throw out there that the idea that you had about making a bare bones wallet really fits like the spirit of the coin in general.
Yes.
I think that's fun, making a coin that does just what it's supposed to do and do it as efficiently as possible.
Yeah. I didn't want to go out and build anything special. And that's why even now I'm not really sure what the future is for Nano Vault. But what I knew I wanted something so that I could use Nano really easily, Right. So that's what I set out to make. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that so far.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention, going back to what you were saying about the network tool that the node was putting on your network. One thing about the pod is on the website, on Nano Things website, it's listed that the pod that you need 15 megabits per second, I presumably up and down, for it to run well. But I've checked my network really regularly since I had it, and I pretty much never noticed anything. My network
is running just fine.
Yeah, my network's always running almost at top speeds. And at that point, it's when I'm watching Netflix or on my computer, and it's still like everything's working fine. Every once in a while, it's pretty low, but I'm not sure if it's because of the node or because of like other things that are happening on the network when I happen to be looking. But
yeah, and I think to be fair, if my memory is right, when I was running into those issues, it was actually like a Mac wallet issue. There was like something was going wrong with the way that it was using the network connection.
I see, yeah.
But it was like flooding it more so via that method than it was actual network data. If that makes sense.
So you said you don't really know what the future is for Nano Vault, but we can talk about some things that have happened so far and how it's gone. One of those things is the state blocks. How is it working with the team, making sure that Nano Vault was ready for that?
It was good. Yeah, so the Nano Core team put together like a little Slack chat that they kind of invited people who were running services around Nano into, and then we kind of used that to communicate. So they gave us multiple weeks heads up. I think at first, it was kind of light on documentation. That's what I remember when we were first doing the transition. It wasn't really clear, technically speaking, how you built the new state blocks and things like that. But the core team did a really good job of communicating with everyone and figuring out that we were missing that information. So they put together full documentation of everything that developers would need to know. And it went really well. I think if anything, Nano Vault actually misstepped slightly in that there's like a given date that the canary was going to drop. And I went ahead and released support for the state blocks before anyone else did, which kind of caused a slight problem with like Nanex and things like that, because people were able to essentially use Nano Vault and then go in and opt into state blocks before and start sending them before anyone else was really ready. Before, because there was two canaries, right? There was one canary that went out that said, okay, now the nodes know how to understand state blocks. Then there was a second canary that goes out and says, okay, now the nodes will only create state blocks. So anyways, just a small tidbit there that isn't really important, but it wasn't too bad of a transition, and obviously it was really good for Nano.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And so that went smoothly. Another thing I've noticed is you've kind of got a system set up pretty well for picking representatives. What was the kind of the idea or the thought behind setting it up the way you did, and do you have any future plans for that?
Definitely will be changing that to make it a little bit more integrated and automatic. Right now, Nano Vault uses its own representative as the default, but we did go out and start creating this system so where you can go in and manage your own list of representatives, and we kind of use the Node API to make sure that they're online and make sure they don't have too much weight. So we don't have a ton there, but there is a page on Nano Vault where you can go and it'll list out, even if you have 15 accounts, it'll break them all down by weight and show you where all your voting power is at and where it needs to be changed. So that was a good first step. And then where we're going to go with that, because at this point, Nano Vault now has started to reach quite a bit of voting weight, to the point where I probably need to start forcing decentralization off of the Nano Vault rep. That would be best for the network. Because at this point, I was just checking it actually this morning, and we just passed official representative number 1. So I think we're the 4th biggest representative in the network right now. Yeah, it's like just over 5% voting weight. So I will want to be. I'll essentially probably be using the same kind of idea as the main Nano wallet company wallets, where we put together a list of trusted people and use that as the default representative for everyone. And then also another thing we'll probably do is automate the notification so that when you go and you use Nano Vault, it'll do that background work about checking your representatives that I mentioned, but it'll just kind of just show you when it needs to. Like, hey, you should probably change your representative because it's offline or because it has too much weight, and just make that right in the face of the user. Super easy. Just push a button, it changes it.
What's one feature you think you would say one of the features you're more proud of in Nano Vault?
I would say, really the thing I'm most proud of overall is not specifically a feature of Nano Vault, but it's just the usage. I'm really proud of how much we've kept it online. There's really just never been any outages. There has been a few outages, but it was mostly when the nodes were really acting up and I couldn't keep my Nano node online for whatever reason.
Right.
That's about the only time there was like a 1-day period where there was about 4 or 5 hours where I couldn't get it working. But besides that, since February, it's just been online 100% of the time, and no bugs. You've never heard of anyone losing money when they're using Nano Vault. So that's the thing I'm most proud of, I think, because it's kind of a risky thing to be doing to some degree.
Right.
Because I kind of feel responsible, as I should, for anyone using the site. And if people attack the site to try and steal the money of users, I'm kind of at fault if that happens. So that's something I take really seriously, and I'm probably the most proud of so far. Is that not a single person can come and tell me that they lost any money. So that's really good. And in the early days, that didn't mean a lot. But now, now we have thousands and thousands of people, and like I said, our representative has 7 million voting weight. So there's not a lot of people that are using the Nano Vault rep that are not using Nano Vault, right? So I can draw some correlations to say there, about
Right.
7 million nano
Right.
has been trusted through the flow of Nano Vault, and like no one has lost any. So that's big for me for
Yeah,
sure.
that's awesome. So considering that you in Nano Vault haven't had any downtime, it's worked pretty much flawlessly since the beginning. How do you feel about certain entities like Binance having trouble keeping their systems up and running?
I don't think that Binance really has a lot of problem with their node and keeping it online as much as
Okay.
their systems and how they interact with the node.
Hmm.
Because the node is just one small part in what it takes to run an exchange and hold nano and trade nano, or
Okay.
any other given crypto. There's a lot more to that system.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously we all know that the way that nano functions is a little different than your standard Bitcoin or your standard Ether. So I think that it's in the complexity of those two systems where Binance runs into trouble. It's definitely weird that we see things like Binance up and downtime different from other exchanges. You would kind of expect to see some similarities, but because you don't usually see all the exchanges are down. We have,
Right.
but you don't usually. That's what also leads me to believe that it's much more in the interaction of their own custom systems than it is with the actual node.
Right. Right.
Um,
Um,
of course, we have seen some node downtime, and we have seen the core team react to that and offer support to the exchanges directly to
mhm.
help fix those problems. And I'm sure that they're still doing that. So I don't know. It sucks to see, and I'm not really sure at this moment, why Binance, as far as if I'm remembering right, in the last like 2 weeks, has had some deposit issues for sure.
Mhm.
I don't know exactly why. It sucks to see.
Yeah, definitely. I know that you said that you don't really know what the future of Nano Vault holds, but you have to have some ideas of where things might go. So, is there anything that you can share in that respect?
Sure. So yeah, because when I said that, I mean, this is the tough thing is like I've built it and it's um, working well. People are using it. People, it's to some degree a necessity now that we have the ledger. We're the only ones with ledger support, but I've had trouble trying to figure out where that evolves into. Like I don't necessarily want to go and just continually add tons and tons and tons of features into the wallet. So I think a lot of what makes it good is its simplicity
Mhm.
as well. Um, and I also don't know that adding a ton of the features, into the wallet. There's quite a few we have on the list as possible stuff. I also don't think adding a bunch of that is necessarily going to be better
Mhm.
for anybody.
Mhm.
Um, I think the wallets in general, that kind of software, it's something that you get it to a point where it works really well,
Mhm.
and then you don't want to change it.
Right.
Um, so it's thinking about those kind of things that I'm not really sure
Mhm.
exactly where we'll go. Of course, there's more features I'm going to add. I really want to try and. So when I first started up, I was willing to invest more money to see because it was just like a side project I wanted to do, and I wanted to see if people like to use it. Now that it's kind of entered that place where it needs to stay online, um, I'm working on better ways to allow other people to contribute
Mm.
to like the costs of keeping it online.
Right.
Um, because one of the things we do that costs us money is we perform proof of work for everybody for
Oh
all
wow.
our transactions. And we don't have to. You don't have to do that. There's an option in there to use your own computer,
Right.
but because we knew that we needed it to work on mobile phones and things like that, we decided to invest in like a GPU server that could perform proof of work
Mhm.
for everybody. So I think, and one of the things that I want to be doing is figuring out the right way to let people kind of contribute and pay those costs.
Right. Yeah, and I
So,
mean,
I mean, I'll continue to pay for it for as long as I can, as long as it makes sense. But I think that it's useful enough to people and it really doesn't cost all that much money to run, that I think people would be more than willing to just kind of help out there and
right.
keep it online for their own needs.
And I know, like, I don't know. I obviously you've talked to Ty, but Brain Blocks has the idea of making it so that the pod can do POW with certain wallets. So that's one way that you could potentially kind of take that burden off of. But
Yes.
obviously, that's not going to be a large portion, even if that does happen. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess, to be determined.
yeah,
One of the good ways I think to solve the proof of work stuff is to allow people to do the proof of work, like allow
like a hamster cage with a person in
yeah, treadmill performing proof of work.
it.
But to allow people to submit, or rather, because a lot of people are willing to go and spend $10 or $20 a month at DigitalOcean and set up a node and run a representative,
Right.
and you could just as easily add yourself into a pool of work servers. You say, okay, I'm going to spend $10 and allow it to be in the pool, and then whenever people are requesting proof of work, the server will go and grab people out of the pool to selectively do work from. So
That's an interesting idea.
I think to me, that seems like the right way so far to allow everyone else to contribute without saying, give me money. Because that's something I really am afraid of, is I don't want people to be just like sending money to pay for the bill directly. Because I think that it gets shady on how the money gets spent and stuff like that. So I'd much more allow people to contribute just very directly.
Yeah.
With their own money. Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's cool. That sounds like a business that somebody should start.
And people have been talking about that. Yeah. So I assume at some point we will see something like that. I know that the Canoe guys are working on some kind of solution for that, like a federated proof of work network, if you will. So people are looking at solutions, and I think we'll be doing something similar to that as well.
Awesome. While you were talking, you mentioned the ledger, and I realized we hadn't touched on that yet. So Nano Vault has worked on integrating with Ledger S. How's that going?
It's been great. I think that was really a huge catalyst for Nano Vault, for sure. The usage in general just picked up because it's kind of the only place in the ecosystem right now where Nano Vault's actually kind of needed. Everything else will work fine. If Nano Vault disappeared tomorrow, everyone would be okay, but no one would be able to use their ledgers. So that was really big. I've been working with Ruzma, I believe is how you say his name, who designed the ledger application. He did a lot of hard work. He did most of the work for making ledger work. It was Ruzma who did that by putting the actual application together on the Nano device. Whereas my application, I just went and made Nano Vault interface with his thing. And so that required a lot of changes in its own right, because it's a different flow for how all of the transactions are working. Right now with the normal code, like I'm signing the transaction, you're the user is signing the transaction locally on their computer, and it's all kind of seamless. We can predict exactly how long it's going to take, things like that. Whereas with your ledger device, we prepare a transaction, we send it off to the ledger, and you might not click the yes button for a minute or 2 minutes, or so it just changes how all of the internals of the wallet have to work. But once we got that working, it's been really big, and I think it's really good for the future of Nano Vault code wise, because it also, since we've made those changes, it allows us to be ready for other situations. So like one of the things that's going to be coming really soon is, support for just normal private keys. Like if you go and make a vanity account, how a lot of people do that. Essentially, if you're not using a seed and you just have one account, you don't need a seed to use Nano. You just need a private key. And so, but none of the wallets support just using a private key. So since we did the changes to the core code base, that's now a possibility, an easy one. So that's something, for example, that you'll see probably pretty soon.
Cool.
Otherwise, the only thing I would mention related to Ledger, number-wise, just because the numbers are interesting to me. Because one of the things we do in Nano Vault is we don't track anything from anybody. We're not storing anything about anyone anywhere. And the downside to that is it's really hard to track how many people are using it and, you know, how they're using it and things like that. So one of the main things I only have to go on is our representative numbers in the network. And so when we first dropped ledger support, we were at about 1.5 million voting power. Now we're at, like I mentioned, I think we're just over 7. So that's been it's been a major growth point for getting people to come and check out Nano Vault. Was the ledger device for sure. Boosted us up into being kind of like a legitimate needed service in the community, I'd say.
That's awesome. Okay, and then going back to kind of what the future is, since simplicity is what you want, and at this point, it's just really going to be about maintaining the wallet, adding a few features here and there. Do you see yourself exploring any other development work within Nano?
It's definitely possible. I would hate to have spent so much time learning it to kind of have that knowledge go to waste. You know, I really like working on nano things, and that's why Nano Vault has been so much fun to me. It's been a great side project throughout this year so far. It's really just keep me interested in these kind of things, learning new things in my free time. So, yeah.
Okay. Cool. So no plans at the moment, but if something presents itself,
yeah,
you think you might?
Yeah, there's I've had a few people hit me up for different things, but we are getting to the point now, because up until now, and even now, I'm going to turn down any kind of a side project just because of the time I need to spend on Nano Vault.
Right.
And just because I don't want to commit to too many things. So in the future now if development really spins down a bit here and there's really not a lot of work to be done, the doors are more open for those kind of opportunities.
Cool.
So I guess, yeah, we'll just see what the future holds, I guess.
Awesome. Okay, what do you think is the best way for Nano to gain adoption?
Well, for sure, I don't have the solution. I wish I could be the guy, the Jesus that leads us forward through the desert or whatever. I don't know. To me, the thing that really, it's really just about awareness. I mean, it sounds pretty weak, but it's probably awareness combined with like a really good message. Like we need like a really small, simple, because what I would argue, I would say, you know, like the core fundamentals are there to convince someone to use it, right? Because it does what it says it does, and it's a better solution for a lot of different things. But can we convince people that that is the truth? And something you mentioned early on that I probably downplay in my mind because I know that it's really hard to do is the on-ramp thing, like you said, making it really easy to buy and sell. I think that's a really hard problem to solve. But if you had solved it, you know, if you had a Coinbase, if you will, for Nano, that would be humongous for adoption. Because to me, if I'm thinking of how do I convince my friend who doesn't know anything about crypto to use this stuff, I can probably convince them on the few arguments, you know, like they would understand sending money for free instantly is a good thing,
right,
and better than using your bank. But when I go and get them to actually use it, and I'm like, okay, you know, go on Coinbase, get some Bitcoin, send it to a different exchange and trade it for Nano, and take that Nano off of the exchange and put it in your wallet. That process,
right,
I feel like is
no
difficult
fun
for newcomers.
Yeah. Yeah, I put some more money in to get some more Nano like last week, and I forgot about it because it took a week, you know. I guess I need to get that over somewhere and buy some Nano. So it's not even good for people that are used to doing it. But yeah, well, I think, you know, another thing that makes this conversation interesting is it's different depending on where you are, and what, you know, I like whether if you're in a developing country and you just want to use it to buy food, or you're in America and you want to send money home to your developing country, or, you know, in a
Mhm.
more developed country, sending across borders. Um, like, yeah. So like the conversation for us, like, you know, fast feeless doesn't really do anything for us because that's what our credit cards do. But you know, if there was a way, an app that was easy to use where you could go and pay, and you could just use your phone, and it just took money out of your bank account and made it into Nano, and then sent it to the uh, Walmart. I I don't want to go to Walmart, but you know, if you go to Walmart and then it changes back to cash for Walmart, and they give you even just a 1% discount. Like everywhere you go, you get 1% off or something because they're saving money on it. And that could be huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that would be absolutely huge. You're right. Like where we're coming from, I think is a big part of the question. Even as some, you know, the UK versus the US or something like that, the way that you go and can actually do these things and can actually cash into Nano is completely different. Um,
Yeah.
and for sure, the banks are on our heels to some degree, right? They're working hard to make applications that are completely free to send between each other, and they're working together to make it so, you know, just because I bank at, you know, Bank of America or something, and you're at, you know, Charles Schwab or something, you know, just because we're at two different banks, that's been a big problem for them up until, you know, recently.
Right.
But it's, you know, they're working on those things too. So the competition for sure is there. And but not for the people in, like, you know, third world countries, like you said. I mean, as far as I'm aware, anyways, banking is really tough there.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I was in the interview I did with Lewis Nobleman. He talked about how like opening a bank account is like a 2 or 3 day process there, of waiting in lines and etc.
well, yeah.
Okay. Well, we've touched on a lot of stuff. I guess we should look at wrapping this up. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you wanted to talk about?
um Nothing major. I guess if anything, I would just tell people to you know, check out our GitHub. We have a Discord and Twitter, of course, and things like that. I'm on the Nano Discord all the time.
Mm.
And we're always looking for just new ideas. Maybe one super big call out I would give is if there's anyone out there that's bored, for example, the guy that gave all the redesign and UI tips to the Nano Vault company. Anyone that wants to do anything like that for Nano Vault, please come right ahead. I think if anything, that's probably the biggest weakness of Nano Vault is it's built mainly just by me.
Mm.
And I'm not a designer. I'm definitely like a, you know, in the code programmer.
Mm-hmm.
So if anything, that's where it lacks, in my opinion. Is it could be a much nicer UI.
Mm.
But if anyone anywhere, I mean, it's all open source. So if anyone wants to contribute, it's super simple, and it's really also good for people who are maybe kind of new to development because the technologies used are very simple. It's just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Mm.
So there's nothing too complex there. And anyways, that's the only call out I guess I would say is we're always open to new people coming in and helping out, and or just change it, you know, fork the wallet and make it your own. Like we kind of mentioned off the call, the Nano is doing just that, and anyone else who wants to is free to do so. So
Awesome. Okay. Well, one more plug for our sponsor, Brain Blocks. Nanocast.co/pod. You can learn all about the pod. If you do buy a pod through that link, I'll get a little kickback. Not much, but you know, a beer. And another sponsor would be nanothings.store. I leave a comment and you'll be entered to win a packet of stickers from Nanothings. And Andy will check that out and send you some stickers. Maybe. All right, last word goes to you. What are some words of inspiration for the nano community at large?
I guess if anything, I would say as hard as it is, and I know that it's hard for me personally too, as hard as it is, try not to get discouraged by price and things like that in a daily movement of the coin. I know it's been really tough to see it fall and lose its ranking in the crypto community. Um, but I would just call everyone to revisit the fundamentals of why they originally thought this was important,
Mm.
and then ask, has anything really changed? I would say no. I would argue that Nano solves a really good problem, and then it's in a really hot new space. And of course, none of us know where this is going to go exactly. Um, but I think that would probably be my biggest advice to the community at large. I think Nano does a really good job. For whatever reason, it attracts the right kind of people most of the time, and it's built a really good community that's helpful and positive. And so that would probably be my biggest thing, is just try not to get discouraged and keep supporting the core team. And let's just see where we can take it.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks for that. Everybody, don't let your dreams and hopes go down the drain, but be excited, because Nano is still what it was. And I think a lot of us would probably say that it's even better now, as the core team keeps coding and making it better and better. So everybody, give a big thanks to Andrew Steele. Make sure you go put some money in Nano Vault so he can have a bigger problem in his hand on how he's going to distribute the representatives. And thanks for tuning in. So we'll see you next week. And next week, as long as everything goes as planned, you'll get to see Colin on here. So see you then.
Awesome. Exciting. Thanks.